I think this is a seriously underrated episode. Although many of the ideas in this are tried and tested mainly in Entire History of You, the actual kind of military and war themes that the episode really grapples with are astounding. Dehumanization, genocide, the behavioral training and reward system, and the head of it all, like Arquette, the guy who made the system, he is one evil man. The score is great, the design is great, and the ending of the story feels super bleak. The sort of safe suburban community whilst this horror is being committed on another part that you can't see in your own neighborhood, you know. The only problem, I would say, is starting from the forest part until he has to rewatch his killings is quite slow, and there's an awful lot of chatting, and we know how I feel about overuse of dialogue, so that's the only kind of qualm I have with Men Against Fire. Other than that, it's pretty good. The opening is amazing, and Jesse Plemons carries the whole episode with one of the best performances in like probably the whole series, but you know, there's great performances throughout it, so it's one of the good ones. The glossy look of the video games and the contrasts, well, in appearance in the office, it just creates a great dynamic, and it provides a lot of room to play around with, particularly in the Robert being evil antics. You know, him going and taking the DNA is especially evident there. In the video game, it's also apparent when he forces his boss to watch his son get sucked out of the airlock. It's just, it's horrible. The script is excellent and has some outstanding dialogue from nearly I'd say all of the characters. The King of Space, stealing my pussy is a fucking red line. I love it. It's just brilliant. It's a shame, though, that the episode is exploring familiar territory, especially in relation to cookies and threatening to leak naughty pics. Why he dies at the end as well is a bit of a mystery to me. It's kind of weird that he would program into his own mod that when you die in the game, you die in reality too. So I wish there was a little bit more clarity on that part, but apart from that, a thrill ride throughout. Brilliant episode. First and foremost, the music. It's absolutely amazing in this episode. The soundtrack choices are great in themselves, but the score, man, that shit pulls my heartstrings. This is another episode with great aesthetics, as some parts glow like neon, others are hideous and green, even the real world looks gorgeous. Kelly and Yorkie have great chemistry, and both protagonists are performed astoundingly, supported by another great script that doesn't give the game away until you're at least halfway through the episode. The study of immortality and the ambiguity of whether San Junipero is a good thing or if it's merely just a land of cookies, the whole discussion that's kind of going on throughout it is just brilliant. The only negatives I have about this one are super nitpicky. There are roadworks in San Junipero for some reason. Like, I thought that was a bit weird, and this is my personal favourite. Elderly Kelly has to walk up quite a considerable flight of stairs to get into her care home. Just look at her struggling. Somebody build that place a lift, for fuck's sake. Another episode with a cracking score and soundtrack, a thoroughly entertaining story with some great social commentary. It's a shame it tries so hard to be a White Christmas clone, but also I'm glad it barely focused on like the previous episodes. So the hospital segment at the beginning is my favourite of the three. It is just unrelenting in its critique of private healthcare. It's absolutely fantastic. The entire setup, everything that you see within it is just all feeds into this kind of overarching narrative, and it kind of does in the second one too, but it also has a take on addiction. It is one of the most horrific tales of the series, with some seriously under-the-skin moments that end with one of the best punchlines to round it off. The second and third sections, they kind of suffer from a couple of issues though. I mean, the second is too focused on cookies. Like, it really has been explored to death by this point. And the third segment, it has a good stab, I'll give it this, it does have a good stab at racial injustice. I wish that it wasn't so clear-cut of, you're the bad man, I'm the hero. But simultaneously, I'm still conflicted about that because Nish has her mum in her head. Maybe it kind of has this overarching idea that everyone has a devil on their back kind of thing. Just the injustice of it is really quite good. I mean, It just has a few minor issues. This episode sets the foundation for so many to come. It deals with paranoia on an extremely personal level and what horrors can emerge from a surveillance society. The story is highly detailed and well thought out. Liam as a character is one of these true tragic cases in fiction, and how his pursuit of truth ultimately lands him in a worse situation than before. The ending is so disturbing, sad, and leaves so much room for wondering what exactly happened to his family in the end. Like, did they run away? You know, did he kick them out? What happened? You know, what we see afterwards is just grim. It's just a bit of a shame that the opening scene is a little bit irrelevant in the grand scheme of the story. I'll grant it introduces the notion of paranoia well, but because he just sort of picks out the bits of the conversation that he doesn't like, he's worried about the whole thing. And the other thing I would be tempted to criticise in the aspect of the plot is where Liam knows where exactly Jonas lives. How does he know that? But I'm so overwhelmingly happy with, well, I say happy, you know, I was completely disturbed by it, but just impressed by the scene where he does go and visit and points the bottle edge in his face. It's so well performed, terrifying, and it's incredible. So I'm just going to let that tiny little criticism slide under the rug. What a powerful, terrifying episode. From when Kenny receives his first email from the hackers, there is just no shortage of tension throughout this episode. If Entire History of You didn't capture technological paranoia to the T, this episode just says fuck you to that, and just sets the entire thing in the present, where technology needn't be imagined, it's already here. Free will is just completely stripped of the victims of the hacker, and the entire experience is just amazing. I mean, Alex Lawther's performance is absolutely outstanding, Jerome Flynn is also terrific, and the moments where they encounter people whose lives are carrying on, blissfully unaware, and just making a light of everything, it's top job. Serious top job. The twist at the end is so incredibly shocking that I couldn't give you an example in the show previously that has ever made me contemplate my reality in such a profound way. My only complaint is in relation to the paedophile deathmatch at the end. I cannot believe that little scrawny Kenny was capable of killing that fully grown man. This confused me greatly, as many have pointed out in my analysis, but I think I'm fully justified in being so. But apart from that, oh my god, what an episode. The setting for the episode is completely alien, and yet so reflective of society at large. It's just beautiful, this episode. A prison of entertained cyclists repeating their daily lives, perpetually contained and forced into obedience. It just takes cracks at media, it makes a mockery of money, it is just so creative, and the scale of this world that has been conjured here is astronomical. The charging of users to skip ads is something YouTube is probably considering as it slowly gets sucked down the corporate plug hole. I mean, the music in this episode is something else. Even the first use of Anyone Who Knows What Love Is works beautifully to the episode's advantage. My teeny tiny little criticism is that it's a shame the jealous girl never amounted to anything. I think it would have been interesting if she was more of an obstacle to Bing than anything else, but hey, this episode is amazing without it anyway. This was a bit of a shock to me, rewatching it again. I think my enjoyment goes up the more I watch it, because my god, I can't think of a single thing wrong with this episode. The shortness of the episode is utilised brilliantly, as we're blasted with a 30-minute roller coaster ride of tension, followed by a twist that blew my fucking mind when I first watched it. The best part is that absolutely nothing is clear until the gun shoots out confetti and the audience is revealed, where the explanation is kept fairly short, and the most amazing imagery of Victoria in that Pope-mobile, followed by the reset period for the next group of people to come and repeat the process all over again. Oh my god. The performances, the strangeness, the sheer horror amount to a cracking 40-minute experience. Now, made a bit of a silly comment in the analysis video about there being no concrete proof that Victoria actually did anything, which I think is another good point for the story in itself. But whether it's made clear or not, the way the audience is forced to confront whether she deserved this method of punishment is incredibly thought-provoking. Oh, holy crackers. This one's a cracking good cracker! Everything in this story is nothing short of perfection. Jon Hamm's performance, the music, both soundtrack and score, the twists and turns, the escalation of technology and tension go together like bread and butter. The technologies of Be Right Back and Entire History of You feel like they've been injected with steroids in this episode. Think things were bad then? They're even more fucked now! The story is just so intelligently woven throughout, and I think that cookies, possibly the best idea the show has ever conceptualized. The third story is only slightly weaker, in firstly lacking Jon Hamm, but also in making me curious as to what Joe did all of those years in between seeing what he thought was his daughter. The final scenes with Matt being blocked by the world and Joe's cookie being tortured for untold lengths of time just leaves a staggeringly depressing end to our two protagonists' journeys. Come on, you all knew this was coming, didn't you? 17 minutes and 30 seconds compared to the other ones? Wasn't for no reason, guys. The music, 10 out of 10. The aesthetics, 10 out of 10. The behavioural monitoring of everybody, every day, through the control of a social media dictatorship. Every single character is relatable, and the performance of life is exposed and prodded at with the harshest of prongs. The dishonesty, the cringe, the fakeness, all displayed through some of the most incredible dialogue the show has ever produced, with excellent performances from the entirety of the cast. The climax of the story at the wedding and the prison is undoubtedly where this episode shines brightest. The look of Lacey and her speech here completely blew me away, and the most beautiful display of verbal freedom is experienced in a prison. I mean, the association with freedom here just gives the most satisfying feeling to the end of the best Black Mirror story. Thanks for watching. What's your favourite episode of Black Mirror and why? Leave a comment below where we will actually, no, screw that, come and join the Discord server. It's not dead anymore. I'm on there more than ever, so come and join the party. Link is in the description. Love you all, thank you so much, and good night.